Hey everybody, this is Conrad Ackermont with Agile IT. Thanks for joining us for another Tech Talk. This is a weekly session. We've been building up quite the library of these sessions. If you didn't realize it or not, we do these every week. Every once in a while, we take a break for maybe a week or two, but we try and get this through every week. Really, the focus is we want about 10 to 15 minutes of really good content. A lot of times we go through a lot of demos. Today's one of those topics where there really isn't so much to demo, so much as really talk about. And with me today I have Maggie McGrath, who's our service desk manager, who's really manages our managed service customers, but also takes a watchful eye of many of our CSP customers, those that buy licenses directly from us. And one of the reasons why I wanted to ask Maggie here. Oh, and by the way, Maggie, say hello.
Hey y'all, how's it going?
Some of you probably talk to Maggie on a pretty frequent basis. If you haven't spent time with her, look forward to doing that in the future. But one of the reasons we wanted to bring you, Maggie, on was, we have a number of customers where we'll go through and let's say it's either a project or maybe something that they've been working on for a while. They've been deployed in Office 365, and you kind of live on that promise that. I'm only paying for what I use. I bought these licenses. I pay for them because that's what I use this month. People leave. I go down in licenses. People come, add licenses. That feels good in general. But it sometimes is not very frequent where they go back and look at it. We try to do this as best we can during a migration when people are coming on board. Sometimes they don't know all the details, especially if they have licenses. But there's some common things that go on that we thought we'd at least want to share with those that are on here. Again, those that are on the call every week are MSP and CSP customers. So it's one of the benefits is that you can come on and ask questions. But we do also replay it afterwards, available on our channel. But you can go to our blog and find it posted the next day. So why right size? Why even go through this exercise? Because it is an exercise, and sometimes it's a labor of love because. You may not know all the answers, and if it's been a long time since you've done it, getting the right details could be challenging. So the first part is really preventing wasteful spending, right? And you might be paying for more things than you actually use, and nobody wants to do that. But the other benefit of this is if you want to right size, and Maggie's going to go through an exercise here in a minute, and some kind of key points to look at. But you might actually you may have started with something, you've added on in the future, and then you're actually getting what you want, you're using what you want. But if you made a change, potentially you could be getting a lot more for what you're paying for right now, which is always a benefit you want to go for. The process of doing this is something that you would feel is pretty standard, but you really got to make sure you're hitting all the check boxes, right? Audit what you have. So what do we have? Part of that audit is what do we have and who's using it. That's part of that assessment. Do we still need that? And then make an adjustment, right? And Maggie will go through a nice example on here that talks about it. Now, who should do this? Now, I say the IT admin normally because it seems like a very natural connection between the licenses and the IT administrator. But I think they have to do some homework too, right? Like, oh, nobody's using that. Let's just turn it off. And there is somebody in accounting that's using that. That would be bad. And again, they should do that assessment because, maybe the accounting office was using that and they're not doing it. So it requires a little bit of legwork, I think, not just, and that's really any organization. The other place is your license admin. Now, the one thing, if you bought the subscription, like let's say a credit card, and you just did it that way, that's fine. But you're kind of on your own to figure all those things out. If you have a licensing administrator, like let's say you use a big partner, like let's say SHI, they're one of our close partners, and you bought licensing through them, they have licensing specialists who will help walk you through that. They're still going to ask you the question, what do you use, are those departments, do they really need it? Even though it's been low utilization, maybe they use it once a quarter. You still have to ask the business, or they're planning to roll it out. Again, ask the business, but you can still get utilization information to find out more about it. For us at Agile IT, so if you're one of our CSP customers or managed service customers, that's something that we do for every quarter when we do client briefing sessions. We take a look at your licenses. Sometimes it's easy to just breeze over it, but we really want to challenge customers like, hey, what's changed in the organization? Are these the right licenses? If we see something that's a little off putting, Maggie will show one here as an example. You want to bring it up and say, hey, we can actually make these changes and hopefully save money or get more things in the end. So really right sizing, again, we're trying to either save money or get more from the money that we are spending. And this is kind of the beginning of the process. So Maggie, why don't you kind of walk us through kind of just this problem that we went through with the customer?
Sure. So large licensing providers are great, but often you wind up just kind of taking orders, and you're not necessarily doing that kind of analysis of, do you need this license? How can we offer that? So we had a customer come to us, and this was kind of what their licensing looked like as we started out. Taking a glance at that, I can just tell you, for example, that Azure Advanced Threat Protection is a license that is included. It's one of the add-ons to Enterprise Mobility and Security E5. So there's almost $3,000 being spent that doesn't need to be. It's already part of their license subscription.
Every month.
Every single month, right? That's not an annual. That's not a one-time. That is an every month cost that isn't necessary. The other thing, you look at some of these. If you were to look at, say, Skype for Business Online Plan 2, looking at this Power User and Power BI Pro, that's $16, plus the Office 365 E3 user is $20. There's $36. All of those are included in the Office 365 E5 user, which is $35. So it's only $1 a user a month, but $1 a user a month does add up. So being able to kind of walk through this with our customer, we were able to offer some options on how to change and save a pretty decent amount of money every month.
Yeah, and I'd point out, even though you said it's only $1, I know that if we were having a conversation with a CFO or a CEO, and you go, yeah, we messed up, it's only $1. It's not that dollar waste was, going to kill them, but they normally look at that as something you've neglected. Like, oh, well, if you're not looking at that, what else are you not looking at? And then now they're just probing and prodding, as they should, right? Like, how long have we been spending that $1? 2 years? Like, that's just what I could have done. Like, you were asking me for this amount of budget last year, and you could have had it if you had done this, right? And that's the thing, right? Well, am I going to lose money in IT? Well, one, you never really do when you do it this way. I save money in order to spend it some other place. Like, great, it's in your kind of IT budget. So it's one of those things, but sometimes these things don't jump off at you because you may not know that those licenses are there. Probably, I'm just guessing in this, but probably they didn't have E5 in the beginning. They wanted that Azure Advanced Threat Protection. They've added it on. They're like, oh, that's great. We'll do this Skype for Business. We think everybody's going to use it. Great. They're like, oh, well, we like all the EMS stuff and E5, so let's buy that. So I just kind of layered it on. Unfortunately, if you're doing this yourself or you had a partner who maybe wasn't as thoughtful in these things, it's easy to just let that run away, especially if you're online and credit card doing it yourself. That system will let you take whatever. Now, when you go to apply it, it might give you little hints that there's some things there, but it's not going to say, hey, man, don't buy it, especially if you've already paid for it. Anyway, so those are kind of key reasons. Anything else cool?
So we were able to kind of talk about what might work better. And so we had a couple options. You can see, just looking at what the totals wind up being, it's a pretty hefty change in licensing just by doing a little bit of analysis and knowing the Microsoft Office 365 license catalog is large and can be overwhelming. So having someone that really understands the licensing have a chance to sit down and look at it for you can do some major changes, and you can see it even looks a little bit cleaner and less confusing in the licensing.
Yeah. Now, so Maggie, question. So if you,
Sure.
Let's say a customer goes to this and goes, option 1 looks great. When I turn off those other services and kind of consolidate, so the 2 we looked at was for, like, let's say the Azure Advanced Threat Protection, and I turn it off because it's included in the other one, is from the time do I turn one off and then I got to turn the other one on? Do I lose service or anything in between?
There's no interruption in service, especially if you have someone like Agile IT, a managed service provider, or an engaged licensing provider. They'll manage that entire transition for you. So often what I'll do, make sure it all happens in a pretty tight little window, and I can just go ahead and move licenses from one to the other, just kind of balance those SKUs around, make sure that nothing gets interrupted or impacted.
Cool, great. So in terms of planning, so one one question is, Maggie, like when should I do this? Because this doesn't seem like I do this every day or every month.
No, could take a lot of time to go through every day or every month. But it is an important thing to look at. So we suggest, well, with our managed service customers, what we do is we go through this quarterly. We already have client briefing sessions, and that's really a chance to look at the entire state of business, everything from patching and security services to your licensing, and have a chance to really look through. So it's about every 3 months is a chance to really kind of do a deep dive. If you're doing it on your own as the IT administrator, I would say at least every 6 months to 1 year, you really need to be doing a look at making sure that you've got your licenses kind of dialed in.
Right. Yeah. And, the other one is around those Microsoft announcements.
Right.
I mean, what if they come out, dear, if they say, hey, we now have an E7.
And they will. Right.
At some point, there's going to be like a bigger bundle, and you never know.
Mm-hmm.
Things that you've bought separately will do that. Now, I joke on E7, but it could happen. But the thing that is kind of like that is the Microsoft 365 license.
Mm-hmm.
So if I am today buying Office 365, and I am today, buying EMS E3 or E5, and I am looking at some of the new things that I can go into Windows 10. Again, now it's like, oh, there's things in there. There's the Microsoft 365 license, and how does that line up with E3 and E5, and what transition do I make? So if it's possible to spend the same amount and get more from it, like why wouldn't you do that? The other is that if I could get more from that license, that saves me from purchasing another vendor. Sometimes I get cost savings there.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe I do pay a little bit more money, but get a whole lot more value out of it. Any customer that has any kind of E5 of any of those things, I would say you should take a look at those sorts of things.
Absolutely.
Especially as the way Microsoft is bundling. I would almost say that if you're made a big commitment to Office 365, you've seen where you want to go with EMS and security, you're on Windows 10, the natural gravitation, will be towards the Microsoft 365 license in the coming future. The reason I want to bring that up is, as you're planning out those next set of projects or next set of things that you want to go do, really take a look at that Microsoft 365 license and kind of keep that in mind, because we don't want to create another problem of just stacking on other add-ons mm-hmm. that maybe the older they can have. So that's a question that I push onto the staff here, like, oh, well, if somebody's asking this, are we pushing back and saying, hey, why not do this? It might actually save you money or give you more for it. Mm-hmm. So that's why it's like, I don't want to just always take, customer says just do this, because sometimes, our recommendation is to save money and do better. So the things we want to look at. So anyway, but definitely, you want to evaluate this frequently. I think it's also important when new users come on, is always an opportunity, because you're kind of in there. If you're buying the license, going, hey, is this really the right one? And ask questions. So the nice thing about it is it's not like an EA where you had to buy like a 3-year agreement and everybody has, there's a lot of flexibility to change as you need to. And you saw that example, you had standard users and power users, and sometimes even there, then you have like frontline worker users. And so mm-hmm. maybe I don't want E3 for them. Maybe I want, the new
kiosk license
or like the F1 licenses right. for, mm-hmm. The frontline worker. So those are other options that are out there. Mm-hmm. So when you evaluate this, again, part of that assessment is, well, what is available out there? If you're doing credit card, you're kind of on your own. If you kind of come to us and want us to help out, that's what it is. So we kind of onboard CSP customers as part of evaluation, or MSP customers. So anyway, I think in this short amount of time, we, unlike some of the other tech talks, we get very technical, but this is a part where I think all IT departments kind of have this question. You kind of think it seems, straightforward of what you would do, but sometimes you just need like a little bit of a process to go through it. So hopefully this added a little value to you guys. We'll go ahead and open up the phones here to see if anybody has any additional questions that we can go through.